When I was helping my grandma, she needed all the help. I mean, it had been about 15 years since she had lost her husband, which is my grandfather. And she liked to smoke her cigarettes. She really liked candy. So she would sit on her couch and just eat food and watch TV. And I guess I don't blame her, really. Like, at that point, you know, what did she have to live for? She had a one and only son, who was my father, who was off doing his own thing all the time, traveling for work, so he never stopped by. And, you know, her son's family was pretty fragmented and off doing their own thing all the time, too. So for my grandma, I don't want to call her obese. I think she was just large and she didn't really take care of herself. So I don't know. It fell upon me, I guess, somehow. I still don't know. My grandma could no longer drive her car, so I sort of borrowed it. And she couldn't go up and down stairs easily, so I would be the guy that would take her dirty laundry down into the basement and, you know, put it in the machines, bring it back upstairs. I would go to the grocery store for her, the pharmacy. Occasionally I would take her to get her hair done, which seemed important to her. I don't know, it was a thing, I guess. And I don't know, everything. The post office, so that I could buy her little stamps so that she could put them on the envelopes and send her bills, you know, through the mail. This is back in the day, right? So yes, she very much needed everything, you know. I think the most that she did each day was like get up to go to the bathroom. I don't know. Just, yeah. I think she was pretty miserable in that house alone. Can you imagine 15 years without your partner, without your loved one, in a little house by yourself? It's just... So, oh, we got more wind again today. That's awesome. I don't know. I tried my best, and it was just kind of awkward because the critical voice inside my grandma, it was pretty loud. And I don't know, it wasn't like she was trying to be mean, you know? She would just say stuff like, Bishop, why don't you get a haircut? You know, it's time. Bishop, you look like a female. And honestly, it wasn't her fault, you know. Back in her day, if you had long hair, it was because you couldn't afford a haircut. You were a bum. You were homeless. Bishop, why do your pants have holes in them? Because again, you know, she grew up, her time was like the 40s, the 50s. It was so much simpler. If you could not mend your pants or put a patch on them, you threw them away because they were trash. And you certainly didn't wear them out in public. Because again, it just wasn't what you did, you know? The only people that would have long hair as a man or wear holes in their pants were the homeless, the bums. I don't know. My grandma would say, Bishop, did you get your ears pierced? Oh my God, what's wrong with you? Did you get only one ear pierced? Is that a dangly earring? Bishop, come on, man. Why are you wearing combat boots? You're not a soldier. You're not in a war. Bishop, are you wearing a collar? What's up with that? Why does your collar look like it's supposed to be barbed wire? So yeah. On and on this went, and I don't want to call it abuse, but it was very insulting. It was very verbal attack, offensive maybe. And it's weird because when it's a family member, it's supposed to be allowed or it's accepted, right? Like you're not supposed to tell a family member, hey, please stop doing that. You know, I don't like this when you say this. I don't like this, this hurts me. But you can't because it's a family member, you know? So you just gotta take it. I suppose it's kind of like, you know, when your parents aren't quite right and you grow up thinking that that's normal, you know? To me, I just accepted it, that my grandma, this was the way she was, you know? I couldn't stop it. I feel like it conditions or it teaches our horse that this is okay, so that later in life, when someone else verbally attacks us or gives us the verbal abuse, it's normal. It's okay, because our horse says this happened in the past and we accepted it then. I don't know. It just got to be really agonizing, She would say, Bishop, I gave you $20. Why can't you go get a haircut? And I know you can afford new jeans, Bishop. And, unless you get a haircut, I'm not going to let you help me anymore. Which was a pretty empty threat, right? But she just didn't get it, She didn't understand the 90s grunge movement with Nirvana and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam. And I don't even think she understood the 80s or the 70s. Like, she had just given up. So, to my grandma, it was just unfathomable. Unfathomable. There's a fun word. So I would keep helping her, and there would be times when, a friend of mine, I tried to always have green, because that was my escape, My grandma would say something hurtful, I would jump in my car or her car, and I would smoke some green and forget all about it, But every once in a while, one of my friends would be like, Bishop, I got some shrooms, or I've got some acid, some microdot, and I would have to make this emergency trip to my Grammy. And I'd be like, Grammy, I just need $20 or $30. I found this perfect gift for my sister, and it's for her birthday. And my grandma would be like, but her birthday's in November, and it's like September. Yeah, I know, but there's only one of them left, Grammy, and if I don't get out to the mall right now and I don't have $30, then I can't get this present. Oh my gosh. Grammy, I need some gas money. It's an emergency. I've got to go to this place or that place. And so I would run in and I would say hi real quick and, get her whatever she needed and grab some money, grab a candy bar out of the candy drawer. So I don't really know, looking back, who was abusing who at this point, because I used her, she used me. I just remember feeling really awful about the whole thing, I wished it were different. It's sad when it's a loved one that you've known your whole life and they're suffering and you just can't help them. You just watch them get older and older, and every day, yeah. I can also remember around this time in my life just feeling this huge sense of unhappiness, It felt like so much had just gone wrong. After my parents split and the therapy where they told me I had to be sad, my metamorphosis when I went from being the good smart kid in school to growing my hair long, letting my grades crash and burn, I pretty much went into this little cocoon. And I came out a different bishop. And was it a good one? Was it a bad one? I couldn't tell, because, after the car accidents, was I a bad driver, Bishop? And after, letting my dad pay for my car loan, was I a bad son? And then this whole MLM thing where I couldn't make a business work and I couldn't be happy and rich, and, was I bad at business too? This love with Amanda, was I a bad roommate? Was I bad at love? Come on, Bishop, what is it that you're good at? Is there anything that you're good at? Because I struggled. I couldn't figure it out. And the stuff with my grandma was just the icing, just the top layer of the cake. Yeah, just felt like there was no escaping it, When I said that I had all these friends in my life, I did. I really did. I had my gang, but I don't think, none of them I could talk to about hard, difficult stuff, I think we all came from broken homes and abuse and damage and scars, and we just wanted to get high and forget about it, Bishop, don't tell us about how sad you feel about Amanda, because you got to have this awesome love with this awesome house and this dog and this cat. And, Bishop, we idolize you. We think you're the coolest. You can't tell us how bad your life is, because we're not buying it. So I didn't feel like I could talk to any of them. It wasn't their fault, really. You know, I was taught not to talk about it, so it just sucked. My dad's cousin Kathy, she felt like the only one that I could honestly confide in, you know, honestly talk to about anything difficult. And she just listened and she related, you know, so yeah. Some relationships are very superficial, very plain. And then every once in a while you get those relationships that are deeper, right? The ones that count. The three consistent adults in the first part of my life were my mom, my dad, and my grandma. And from my mom, I learned how to not talk about it. And from my dad, I learned that you just avoid, and that sex could be done very, very wrong. And from my grandma, she taught me that, you know, verbal insults, they were acceptable. It was a thing. You could just do it, you know. And I don't blame these people. I honestly don't, because it was their horses that taught my horse. You know, they didn't have a kid and decide this is how I'm going to break them. This is how we're going to put all our flaws into Bishop. So I don't know. That's just like how life goes, right? Like, I did get a lot of good from my mom, my dad, and my grandma, but yeah. In 1996, I moved into a place with my dad. He just bought a big house. And I don't know. It's not much to look at, I guess. Yeah. It has a fenced-in backyard, so that was important to me. Some woods in the back, so I could go get lost, you know, try to pretend I was a kid again. I had the whole basement. I was even able to set up my giant fish tank, my giant fish. So yeah, I guess I was okay. Every once in a while, Amanda would come and visit. I think she was worried about me. So it was weird because the whole time we were living together, like, we would never talk, almost never. There was nothing to talk about. But now that we were apart and separate, that's pretty much all we did, was just talk. And there was no sex, so it was this weird limbo where I still wanted to be in a relationship with her, but she just knew it wasn't going to work. My primary relationship was with the weed. So, I don't know. Love is complex, complicated thing. And I sometimes wonder if it would have been easier if we had just gone cold turkey, you know? Stopped seeing each other, stopped talking, because I felt stuck. Yeah. I was in my dad's basement, sitting on the edge of the bed with Amanda, and I don't know, we were just petting the pets, you know, sitting there talking, trying to be okay. And my dad's phone rang. So I answered, and it was my mom. She asked me how I was doing, and I don't know, something just wasn't right, you know. Her voice, it didn't sound normal. I told her, you know, I'm just sitting here with Amanda. We're just playing with our pets, right? So my mom, she sounded kind of relieved. Then she proceeded to tell me that my dad's cousin Kathy had passed away. She died in her kitchen in Florida. She dropped her cereal bowl. And I don't know, I think my mom, I think she talked to me for a couple more minutes, but I don't think I heard anything that she said. I just didn't, you know. I was numb. So I hung up the phone and I told Amanda, but She didn't understand. She didn't know that I had spent 2 weeks with Kathy. She didn't know about my plan to go down to Florida, start my life over. I don't think I didn't cry. There was no tears. It was just numb, you know? Here was my one chance to escape. And it was like the universe just kicked me in the ballsies, like, here you go, Bishop. She's gone. Big fat kick, right? I know that's a somewhat selfish way of looking at things, and in truth, I didn't care. I would have given anything to have Kathy still alive. Even if I never got to see her again or talk to her again, or if I never got to move to Florida, you know, it was so sad, guys. I can remember the death of my grandpa when I was about 4 years old, and that one didn't affect me too much. I remember the loss of my dog, Boogie, when I was about 11 or 12, and that one affected me greatly. But to lose Kathy at this time in my life, when I was about 20 years old and already hurting, already miserable, it was just devastating, you know? And I kept asking myself, why, God? How could this have happened? This just, it can't be real, you know? I was in denial. I don't know. My mom asked me if I wanted to go to her funeral. And I said, yes, very much. Yes. How could I not, you know? I think it was the next day I grabbed my backpack, some clothes, the last of my microdot, which is like acid. They put it in a little a sugar pill. So it's like a drop of this liquid that goes into a sugar pill, and you just stick it on your tongue. And I jumped on a plane. I sat right beside my mom. You know, it was the first time I'd ever been on a plane before. I was a bit scared, but at this point, well, what's the worst that could happen, you know? Before I jumped on the plane, I asked Amanda if she could keep an eye on the pets, you know. I slipped her my dad's key, which he probably did not look favorably upon, but, you know, it was probably better than having my dog go crazy in the basement and pooping and crapping all over. And on the plane, all I could think about was Kathy. I wrote a eulogy. Is that how you say it? It's like a speech that you give. You know, when a person dies, you stand up at the podium thingy and you, yeah, a eulogy. I think it's an EU. My mom and I, we jumped off the plane in a place called Tampa, Florida. It was, I don't know, beginning of July, so super hot. And I kept seeing these weird trees. They were like palm trees. Are you guys familiar? So, I don't know. I met a wonderful family. A woman named Jerry with a J and a little I with a dot on top, and her husband Bob, and a couple of cool kids. I learned that Jerry was Kathy's best friend. So if I was grieving over the loss of Kathy, then Jerry was grieving, you know, lots more. So we gave big hugs and we smoked some green together, drank a couple beers together, and the next morning, I really wanted to remember this day, guys. I went and I got my nipple pierced. So they pinch your nipple, they put this little pliers and they go, and it hurts. But it didn't compare to the pain that I felt, you know, from the loss. So after getting my nipple pierced, I popped my last microdot and I went to this church. big Baptist old church. A lot of Kathy's friends and family, were gathered, and when it came time for me to do my eulogy, I can remember grabbing my candles and walking up towards the front of this church, and oh my gosh, there was this huge black cross in the front of the church, and to me, it looked like the arms were flapping up and down, just flapping away. I turned and looked down. I couldn't look at the cross. But all in black, my black moccasins, my black pants, black shirt, I stood in the front of that church and I lit a couple candles. And then I proceeded to read what I had written, and oh my gosh, you guys, my voice was just, I can tell a story. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you give me some acid in a couple hours for it to kick in, I am gonna rock your world. So it was intense. It was crazy. The couple times that I looked up and I looked at the audience, they all had blank faces. And what I mean by that is like no eyes, no nose, no mouth. They were just flesh. So I stopped looking out at the audience. And at the end of that speech, oh my gosh, I went and I found my seat at a pew, and my dad happened to be sitting right next to me, and he kind of gave me a little fist bump, which is how Aries say, good job. Good job, Bishop. You may suck at everything else, but when you trip on acid and you give a eulogy for somebody that you really cared about. Later that evening, there was a little get-together. I don't want to call it a party. It certainly wasn't a party like at the cabin, my friends. This was a somber event, and, it was Bob and Jerry's place, light beers, a little bit of weed smoking, lots of just, hugs. I remember a lot of hugs. And people were coming up to me and saying, Bishop, that was such a great eulogy. You did Kathy such an honor. And I didn't want anything to do with the praise. I didn't. I just wanted, I don't know what I wanted. I remember I grabbed a couple beers and I went in their backyard and I sat in the hammock. And I looked up and there was this beautiful full moon, and I could swear I saw Kathy's face in that moon, and she was looking down in all that bright glory. And then I would touch my freshly pierced nipple. Before we left, I talked to Jerry and I said, hey girl, Kathy had told me that maybe someday I could come down and relocate and, start my life over, and how much I was looking forward to that. And Jerry said, well, it's okay, Bishop. Maybe you can come and crash on our couch sometime, it's okay. And I hugged her and I said, oh, that would be awesome. The next morning we took Kathy's ashes to a place called Treasure Island. It's got a fancy name. There's white sand. So I don't know if you know this, but Treasure Island is not, it's the beach. It doesn't have sand like we're used to. It has crushed seashells. There's a fun one to say too. Crushed seashells. So 1,000 years of seashells being crushed by the waves, seashells crashing into each other. They make this powder. It's sand-like. It's a little bit sharper, and it kind of crunches when you walk on it. We found a beautiful spot, some rocks right on the ocean, a bridge in the background, and we scattered her ashes into the water, and I think it was a beautiful place. I think, and I hope that Kathy is still there on that beach, smoking her cigarette, watching the sunset, dip into the Gulf of Mexico. Every night she's there. And I left a little piece of me in Florida, just a little bit of my nipple. when I returned home from Grand Rapids, I found that things, they felt the same. Everything was the same. My grandma was still there, my broken family, my ex-girlfriend who wasn't really an ex, but kinda. And it just felt like I had changed, I had gone on this crazy adventure, flown across the continent, spoke at a funeral, lost a close friend. I remember feeling so desperate and so sick of it all. I was just sick of it. Everything Amanda, the whole drama, not being wanted. I don't know. I told myself that my escape was still possible. I was going to leave. I was going to go to Florida, and Jerry was my ticket. So I typed her up a big old letter and I stuck it in the mail. Guys, this was still quite a bit before the internet and the email, even before cell phones. So this is how you communicated. You would send a little letter, my little dot matrix printer. Those were awesome. And I said, Jerry, I'm so excited. I'm definitely coming, in a couple weeks. And I'm going to gather up some money. I'm going to put all my stuff, I'm going to pack it all into my dad's, one little corner of his basement. I'm definitely coming. And I think it was about a week later, she sent me a letter saying, okay, Bishop, we're excited for you. We're here. There was just one obstacle to my plan. I was okay with leaving my job, leaving everything, but I had these pets. I had a dog and a cat, and if you're gonna try to go crash on a friend's couch, you can't bring a dog and a cat. You just can't. So what are you gonna do, Bishop? You can't bring them with you. You're gonna give them up? Get them up for adoption? Let somebody else take your pets? Amanda can't keep them. I figured that the fish had a good life, I was okay with letting him go. He grew big. But the dog and the cat, it just felt impossible for me to let them go and then have to wonder about them for the rest of my life. Wonder if they were receiving the care and the love that I was able to give them, Wondering what kind of life they would have, if they would suffer in a little jail, a little cage, because no one wanted to adopt them. It was a horrible, terrible feeling to just not know what to do, to not have an answer. I was the game master. I always had an answer to all the problems all the time, even if my answers sucked. So what could I do? I found the only answer I kept coming back to was that I would have them both put to sleep. Then I would no longer have to worry. I would no longer have to wonder if they were okay. I could tell myself they were in doggy heaven with my boogie. It was a horrible decision, and I dreaded it. I did. I was miserable anyway, and to lose Kathy, to lose my pets, to lose everything, it was a tough time. So I made an appointment at a vet, and I carried them both inside. And I gave him a big hug, and I told him I was so sorry. And the vet, they gave him a little shot, and they went to sleep. I asked for their bodies to be returned to me later. I would come back in a few hours and pick them up because I didn't want the suspicion that maybe they weren't in doggy heaven, cat heaven. Maybe the vet place, they just took my pets and they put them in little cages in the back room, and they just told me that they did it, They took my $50. So I took their corpses, and they were in a black garbage bag, the thick kind, and I brought them to my my backyard, my childhood home where my mom was at. And I found a spot off in the corner of the yard that I thought would never be disturbed. And I dug as deep as I could. I cried. My face was covered in dirt and tears. And I buried my dog, Wendy, and my cat, Anguish. It was time to start my life over again. So it was just hard. I quit my job as a auto parts delivery driver, and in truth, looking back, they probably should have fired me like many times. I called in sick all the time. I was late. I was driving around Grand Rapids in their delivery truck, smoking a lot of the green. So yeah, my dad asked about the loan, and I told him I was going to do my best to pay it. You know, I was going to go down to Florida. I was going to get a new job and start a new life and, you know, have a new house, maybe find a new girlfriend, a new roommate that actually wanted me, you know. I didn't think that was so unreasonable to just have a girlfriend that kind of wanted me as much as I wanted her. I don't know. I made all the best preparations, and by preparations, I mean I went and bought the biggest bag of green that I could get my hands on, and I bought a bus ticket, you know. I didn't have much money, and the Greyhound bus, it was like $300. You could go from Grand Rapids, Michigan, all the way down to Tampa, Florida. Jerry and Bob were in a place called St. Petersburg. So, July 10th, 96, I jumped on that Greyhound bus, my backpack and my suitcase, and I was ready. I was so ready just to leave it all behind. You know, no more disappointments, no more sadness, no more angst and anger. I wanted to be happy. So I rode that bus. Oh my gosh, you guys, if you've never been on a Greyhound bus, do yourself a favor. Go across the country. It's fun. I could do a whole nother hour-long video. If you're not familiar, the Greyhound will take you from city to city, and sometimes there's like a 2 or a 3 or a 4 hour layover in a particular city. Sometimes you will get a 6 or an 8 hour layover. So Bishop, congratulations. You found yourself in a place, you know, Nashville, Tennessee, and you've got 6 hours to kill. And it happens to be 4 a.m. Do you want to go outside and smoke cigarettes, smoke some weed? So yeah, my trip was miserable, but I had this hope in my eye, and it was just a release to like let go of all this baggage I'd been carrying, all this just freedom and the chance of a better life, you know, it was on its way. So looking at my my list of tickets, my itinerary, because you'd have to transfer from one bus to the other bus to the other bus. So it looked like I was going to get to Tampa in about 3 days. 3 more days. That's all it takes, Bishop. Maybe you're going to sleep in on the floor of a bus station. You know, maybe you're going to sleep outside. You're not going to sleep on the bus, because if you're a big human, I'm a tall human. I'm about 6'1", depending on the size of the boots that I'm wearing. Can you guys see my boots? So I couldn't sleep on the bus. I think my brain kind of shut off for a little while here or there, but have you guys ever done this or wanted to do this, where you hit the big old reset button on your life? It's pretty crazy. It's a very unique experience, right? I remember just crying a lot, you know. I would touch my nipple, which had healed, but I don't know. I remember just like shedding my skin. Maybe that's the best way to do it. I was letting go of everything. There's this hope, you know, and it's so precious. It's so rare sometimes, where you just get to let go. You know, let go of it all. It doesn't matter anymore. Whatever happened, After 3 long, grueling days, crazy, lots of crazy, I jumped off the bus and I was in Tampa, and I called a cab and I rode the cab to Jerry's place, and I showed up at her doorstep. I had made it, you guys, I had made it. I had my driver's license, my backpack, my suitcase, my social security card. I had my big bag of green, and I was ready. I was jumping up and down, excited, even though I was exhausted and miserable, and I smelled and I stank super bad. Like, I was gonna need the garden hose. Thankfully, Jerry had a swimming pool in her backyard, so that was a priority. I knocked on her door, and oh my gosh, this strange little girl answered. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Who are you? And Jerry came and found me at the door, and she says, oh my gosh, Bishop, you're not gonna believe this, but I tried to call you a couple days ago. And I was like, yeah, I was on the bus. Bishop, my sister and her kids, they had to escape, from her abusive husband. So they came and they stayed with us. So Bishop, we've got like 5 kids and 3 adults in this tiny little house. I called and I tried to stop you. I tried to tell you, don't come. Like, I can't have you. And all that precious hope. Oh, precious. The universe, like, come on. Why? Oh my gosh, universe. Yeah. What do you do with that, right? What do you do? I said, it's okay, right? No worries. I'll just sleep in your hammock. Like, I'm exhausted, so I'm fine. I will crash in your hammock, no big deal. Jerry said, well, Bishop, there's like mosquitoes, right? There's bugs. Nope, it's okay. So that night, after jumping in their pool and trying to shed a layer or 2 of dust and nast, I laid in that hammock again, and I didn't give up. This was just a small bump in the road, and honestly, there was like no alternative. It wasn't like I was gonna go back. No, there was no going back. So in the morning, Jerry said, Bishop, I'm so sorry, I just can't keep you. Like, we've got, this would be like 5 kids and 4 adults in this tiny house with 1 bathroom. Bishop. I said, it's okay, I didn't want to be a bother. And I totally understood, because I was just some weird guy from Michigan, Jerry had her sister and her sister's kids and her own kids and her own husband, and her situation was dire. So she made a couple phone calls, and she says, hey, I found this place where you can spend the night. I said, that's awesome. So I grabbed my backpack and my suitcase, and she took me, downtown St. Petersburg. And this real ramshackle building was kind of weird looking, like, kind of weird. But I tried it. I went inside, and around 5 p.m., 6 p.m., they had like spaghetti dinner. And this wasn't like the spaghetti that Amanda and I used to make for our friends. This was a whole different cold Chef Boyardee. No, that was too good for that. This was some old spaghetti. And right around 6 p.m., they had a church service, which was mandatory. Like, you had to go to this church service. The guys, I remember not liking church as a kid, but my mom went to a Christian Reformed church. This church was Baptist, and I don't know if you're familiar. The Baptists, they have a fun way of doing things, right? It's all about fire and brimstone and speaking in tongues and hellfire and salvation. But I listened, and I was just thankful to not be in a vibrating bus anymore, having my guts shaken to pieces, So around 7 p.m., they broke out the mats. You guys like my air quotes? So these mats were about an inch, maybe at one time they were an inch. Now they were maybe 3/4 of an inch, but these were heavily used mats. Very little give, no cushion, and they didn't smell good. So me and about 10 or 12 other guys, this was a homeless shelter. We broke out those mats and we were told that we had to lay down and they were locking the doors. You could not go outside, no smoking cigarettes. It was hot. Oh my gosh, it was hot. There was no fan, no air conditioning. Just nasty. I didn't sleep. There were guys all around me snoring. Some of them were making even stranger sounds. What's the sleep apnea? Yeah. Do you guys know anybody has some sleep apnea? It literally sounds like somebody is dying. So right next to me, you know, some old guy. This was the first time in my entire life that I'd ever been homeless, truly homeless. Had nowhere to go. I was in a strange city. The morning came bright and early. I think they kicked us out at like 5 a.m. I was learning. I didn't understand why, but you know, at nighttime at a homeless shelter, they lock the door at 7 p.m. and they don't let you go out. And then early morning, you know, at 5 a.m., they kick you out. So I guess they keep you tired on purpose. Does that make sense? I grabbed my stuff and I was out the door. I did not want to go back. I was motivated, you know. Here was me in my new city. It was time to go find a new job. Time to start, you know, life over, right? So I started walking. Went to the gas station, bought a Mountain Dew. You know, tried not to smoke the green. I think I smoked a cigarette or two, and I walked. I bought a paper map. I started looking for, you know, auto parts stores. I think I went into a Burger King, and the manager there, they would be like, okay, Bishop, on your job application here, you have no home address and no home phone number. Like, what, Bishop? You're carrying around a backpack and a suitcase? Like, your driver's license says you're from Michigan? What are you doing? Like, this is... I also learned in the middle of July in Florida, it gets hot. Like, hot. And the people down there, they don't go outside during the day. It's uninhabitable. So maybe a lot like Michigan in the wintertime. You don't go outside in the blizzard and carry around a giant backpack. I'll tell you a secret, guys. If you're ever wondering if a person is homeless, if their backpack is just overflowing, just stuffed full of stuff, it's because they're homeless. Nobody chooses to carry around a backpack with that much stuff in it. Especially not Bishop, who had his suitcase also. So everywhere I went, they looked at me like I was crazy. Was I running from something? Had I committed a crime? Was I wanted? And I guess in a way, I was running for myself. I kept looking for, you know, my group of friends. Like, where's that pretty redhead smoking a cigarette? You know, where's my gang? And I was learning things fast. I learned that St. Petersburg, Florida, is where the old folks go to retire. There's not a lot of young population there. So Bishop, your new life, as badly as you might want it, you're struggling to find a job, you can't find friends, you're just, the couch that you were planning on crashing on, nope, over and over. Like the universe just told me over and over, no, Bishop, no. There's this weird phenomena in Florida, maybe just parts of the South, where, I don't know, like 7 p.m., pretty much like every night at 7 p.m. there's this torrential rain. It's just a downpour. It's buckets. It's sometimes sideways, sometimes straight down. just hard, wet. And at 7 p.m. after a day-long heat wave, you are like, you're thankful, because this rain, it's so nice. It's perfect, you know. It's like almost like bath water, warm. But then about a half hour later, it stops suddenly. It's gone. It was just that quick. And now all the sidewalks, all the pavement, they're steaming. Steaming like fog, and the humidity shoots up to 99%. And it's crazy. I didn't care. I was dripping wet. It was a welcome rain to me, but then at the end of it all, it was hard to breathe. Just a struggle, you know? Yeah. I refused to go back to the homeless shelter. I didn't care what happened to me. I was not going back. So I think I went and found a cemetery. And I just sat in that cemetery, all wet, you know, wasn't much grass. And I just thought about life, you know, thought about all the mistakes I had made, thought about what I could do to fix it. I don't know if I slept that night or how much I slept. I was exhausted, you know, the bus ride, emotionally just spent. And it was just, it was really tough. I found that Jerry was right. There were some mosquitoes. And guys, these are not just little mosquitoes. These are champion mosquitoes who were hungry. I had slept on the ground and I hadn't shaved and I stank. I had sort of become what my grandma, you know, like I was a bum. The bug bites on my face, like they were worse than my pimples. And my hair was all unkept. I literally looked like a homeless guy because I was homeless. Go figure, huh? But I didn't want to give up. I so didn't want to give up. I think I wandered around that miserable city for like 3 or 4 days, you know, being homeless, sleeping on the sidewalk. I kept touching base with Jerry, and she says, well, Bob says you're in the wrong part of town. You need to go to the better part of town. So one day, Bob dropped me off like at the better part of town, and it was like a beach, like the good part of town, right? Where all the money is, all the retail, all the restaurants. And I would walk by these restaurants and these bars and see people inside, and I would wonder, why can't I be that happy, you know? Why can't I just drink a beer? I wasn't even 21 yet. Don't tell anybody. Yeah. I just couldn't get anything started, you know? Couldn't get the job. Couldn't find a friend. And Jerry says, well, maybe you can go back to Michigan. No, there's no going back. She didn't know what I had done, what I had been through. I couldn't go back to see those ghosts, not again. I wanted so badly to escape Michigan, but to be homeless in Florida in July, I didn't know what else to do. So I think I returned to that cemetery, and Amanda had given me a knife, you know, back in the day. She was suicidal sometimes. I think we were all suicidal. That's what the broken kids did, you know. But she gave me this knife, and she said, Bishop, I no longer want to be suicidal, so I'm going to give you my knife. This is the knife I held to my wrist. So I took that knife out of my pocket, and I just sort of rested it on my wrist. You know, I think I had faked being suicidal a lot during therapy, but I don't know if I ever really was until that day, that night in the cemetery. I just remember asking God, why? What do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do here? You know, every time I try to do something, it doesn't work. So I sat there and I thought some more. And there's just no answer sometimes, you know? Like, no answer. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. It was just numb, you know? What could possibly follow all this? The next morning, I don't know, I had cried all night. Just cried. I went and found a payphone and I called my mom, collect. I had spent all my money, smoked all the weed. I don't know, I was just, you know, I didn't know what else to do. So I said, Mom, I'm stuck. I'm really stuck. I can't do this. I can't get out of this. I don't want to come home, you know. And like always, my mom says, Bishop, it's okay. You know, you can fix this. It'll be okay. You know, someday you'll look back on this. Wow, moms are usually right, aren't they? So I asked her if she could help me, and she says, I'll buy you a bus ticket. It'll be waiting for you in Tampa. She put a bus ticket on her credit card, and I walked one last time, took in all the palm trees, all the gecko lizards. I think by this point I had stopped swatting at the mosquitoes. I just let them have me, you know. Go ahead, take it. Feast on the Bishop. And once again, I jumped on the Greyhound bus, ready for my 3-day voyage back to Grand Rapids, back to Michigan, back to all those ghosts I tried so hard to escape. Returning home as a failure. I think I spent 6 days in Florida. Yeah. 6 days. That's how quickly my life reset button reset. Did you enjoy my Florida story? I'll see you next time. I love you guys. Share your story. I know you got stories. Maybe you got a story of when you fled Florida to come to Michigan. And then you spent 6 days in Michigan. Yeah, share it. Leave a comment. Send me an email.